Good morning, primaries, and welcome to another Sabbath School on YouTube. To get us started today, I have an activity. I'm going to show you an object, and I want you to pause the video and discuss with your family how you can use these objects to show God's love to others. I'm not going to give you any hints. I'm not going to give you any clues about the right answer. I just want you to talk about it with your families and come up with some ideas of how to use these things to share God's love. So, first up, we've got an oven mitt. It's shaped like a bear paw. I think it was a Christmas gift a few years ago, and I absolutely love it. So how can we use this oven mitt to show God's love to others? Pause the video and take a couple minutes to discuss it. All right, up next we have bagels. These are blueberry bagels, but any kind of bagels works. How can you use bagels to show God's love to others? Here's one that's a little bit more difficult. I have a bottle of perfume here. How can you use perfume to tell others about God's love? Up next, we've got a thermometer. How can thermometers help us tell others about God's love? How about a mug? How do mugs help us share God's love with others? And lastly, how about Uno? Can Uno help us share God's love with other people? After you've discussed this with your families, I would love for you to share in the comments below ways that these things can help us share God's love with others, or come up with some other household items that you can use to share God's love with others, and let me know what they are and how you can use them in the comments below. Was it easy or hard to think of how you could use these items to share God's love with others? How do you feel when you think about Jesus helping others? Was it easy or hard for Jesus to find ways to help others? Take a minute to talk with your family about stories of Jesus helping others and how you can help others like Jesus did in those stories. It doesn't have to be a big miraculous thing, just how you can follow Jesus' example in those stories. Now, I'm going to read the story for this week, and afterwards I'll ask a few questions for you to discuss with your family. Do you remember from last week's story when Jesus walked up the hill where he would be crucified? A man named Simon, a man who was just visiting the town, was forced to carry Jesus' cross. Simon must have been shocked at what was happening. It's very likely that if he could have stopped the execution, he would have. But he couldn't stop anything, so he helped Jesus do what he was being forced to do. Simon carried the cross to a hill called Calvary. There he laid the cross down on the ground. 2 other crosses were already up, with a robber bound to each one of them. A place for Jesus waited between those 2 crosses. The soldiers were laughing and making fun of Jesus. They nailed a sign over the place where Jesus' head would be that said, "Jesus, King of the Jews." Then they made Jesus lie down on the wood, and they began to do something awful. The soldiers didn't tie Jesus to the cross as they did the thieves. No, they nailed Jesus to the cross. First they hammered huge nails into Jesus' hands, and then they put both his feet together and nailed him to the bottom of the cross. Then they lifted up the heavy cross and they let it fall into a hole they had prepared. Don't you think that hurt Jesus' hands and feet? Some of the people standing around made fun of Jesus. Others sneered, "If you are the Son of God, save yourself and come down from the cross." They tempted him to do a miracle for himself. But what was special about Jesus' miracles? They had never been done for his own benefit. They were to help others. Jesus never did any miracles to help himself. Remember, Jesus had been up all night at his trial. You can imagine how tired he was and how hungry he must have been. He was hurting and he could hardly breathe. The crowd stared at Jesus, wondering what would happen. Some of them shouted at Jesus. Even the robbers beside Jesus asked him to do a miracle and save all 3 of them. But then one of the robbers said to the other, "We deserve what we're getting, but this man has done nothing wrong." And he said to Jesus, "Remember me in your kingdom." And Jesus promised that robber that he would. Jesus did one more thing for others before he died. He asked his disciple John to take care of Mary, his mother, and treat her as his own mother, and John agreed to do so. Suddenly the sunlight disappeared. It was dark as the darkest night. It stayed dark for 3 whole hours. Jesus felt so lonely. He felt the shame we all feel when we do something wrong because he carried our sins and took the blame for us. Finally, through the darkness, the people heard Jesus say, "Father, into your hands I give my spirit." And he died. Suddenly there was a huge earthquake. People threw themselves on the ground. Graves opened and some people were resurrected. In the temple, the great veil between the holy and most holy place tore from top to bottom. The Roman soldiers standing at the foot of the cross stared in astonishment. Truly, this was the Son of God, they said. God and all of heaven were watching and crying. God loved his son so much. It was so hard to see him suffer and die. But God also loves us so much that he was willing to make that sacrifice to save us. When you show others about God's love for them, you are serving God. He wants everyone to know about the love he has for them. The message for this week is we serve God when we share his love with others. Thank you for joining me this week for Sabbath School. On YouTube, there is a link in the description below for the primary treasure, which has the lesson, and it has stories, and it has activities for every day of the week. Be sure to check it out. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and ring the bell to get notified when we upload next week's lesson. Happy Sabbath!